New Delhi, May 2025, WorldWire News. In a bold move that could reshape global trade dynamics, India has offered the United States a zero-tariff deal on a wide range of American imports, signaling a new era in India-U.S. economic relations. The gesture, praised by some and criticized by others, reflects India's strategic intent to accelerate trade partnerships in a fast-changing geopolitical and economic landscape. According to reports from Reuters, India's proposal includes reducing tariffs to zero on 60% of U.S. tariff lines in the initial phase, eventually offering preferential access to nearly 90% of U.S. goods entering the Indian market. In return, India is seeking expanded market access for its exports, particularly in high-performing sectors like gems and jewelry, textiles, agriculture, and chemicals. With negotiations advancing under a tight 90-day timeline, and U.S. President Donald Trump acknowledging the offer as historic, this development is being closely watched not just in Washington and New Delhi, but across the global economy. Bar graph: what prompted this move? India's trade policy has traditionally leaned toward protectionism, with average tariffs on imported goods hovering around 13%, one of the highest among major economies. This zero-tariff proposal represents a drastic reduction, aiming to bring India's average tariff rate closer to 4%. But why now? The answer lies in geopolitical urgency and economic calculus. India has long been negotiating a broader free trade agreement, FTA, with the United States. However, talks were repeatedly stalled due to disagreements over agriculture subsidies, intellectual property rights, and digital taxation. With the Trump administration threatening to impose new trade restrictions, and global supply chains realigning post-COVID and post-Ukraine conflict, India's move is a preemptive strike to stay relevant and avoid isolation in a US-led trading bloc. Brain the strategic thinking behind the gesture at a glance. India's zero-tariff offer may appear to disproportionately favor the US, allowing its goods to enter India's vast consumer market with reduced duty costs. However, this gesture serves multiple strategic purposes. 1. Curb U.S. pressure and prevent retaliatory tariffs. By making this bold offer, India aims to ease tensions and remove itself from a potential list of trade war targets, which could devastate its export-dependent sectors. 2. Unlock reciprocal market access in exchange for tariff cuts. India wants to reclaim access to the U.S. Generalized System of Preferences, GSP, which allowed duty-free exports for over 2,000 Indian products before its suspension in 2019. 3. Anchor the Indo-Pacific Trade Order. India is using this deal to cement its position as a key economic ally of the U.S., particularly in the context of growing concerns over China's dominance in Asia. 4. Showcase reform-oriented leadership. With elections approaching in 2026, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government is keen to showcase bold economic diplomacy and market liberalization as proof of India's global ambition. Globe implications for India and the world. This trade proposal is not just about India and the US. Its ripple effects could be felt across global trade, diplomacy, and supply chain ecosystems. India for India. A balancing act. While the deal promises long-term benefits in the form of foreign direct investment, technology transfer, and stronger bilateral ties, critics warn of short-term risks. Local manufacturers could be overwhelmed by duty-free U.S. goods, especially in electronics and agriculture. Customs revenue losses may widen India's fiscal deficit unless offset by higher export volumes. Labor unions and farmer groups have already begun voicing concerns, demanding transparency in what they call a one-sided arrangement. Globe for the global trade order. A signal of realignment. India's shift from trade protectionism to selective liberalization sends a message to the world. The age of rigid blocs is waning, and emerging powers like India are ready to set terms on their own. This offer may also influence other countries, such as Australia, the UK, and ASEAN members, to reconsider their trade posture with India, further diversifying the global supply chain network and reducing reliance on China. Compass: what comes next? The road ahead is complex. Negotiations are ongoing, led by India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and U.S. trade representatives. Both sides are working against a tight deadline to avoid new tariffs and finalize a mutually beneficial trade agreement. If successful, this deal could become the cornerstone of a 21st-century India-U.S. economic alliance, offering a model for other emerging economies to follow. However, failure to balance domestic interests with international ambitions could fuel public backlash, political unrest, or even a reversal of reforms, especially in a climate where nationalistic sentiments run high. Speech balloon conclusion: India's zero-tariff proposal to the United States is a diplomatic gamble layered with economic strategy. It is an overture of partnership, but also a high-stakes maneuver in a volatile global order. If executed wisely, it could redefine India's economic identity and recalibrate global trade dynamics. As talks progress, the world watches, not just for a deal, but for a declaration that India is ready to lead, not just react, in the global economy. By WorldWire News Trade and Global Affairs Desk for insight. For balance. For the future.